An intense search for answers after an Amtrak train derailment kills 7 people and injures 200 in Philadelphia. Tonight, investigators have revealed the train was going 106 miles per hour as it entered a curve with a speed limit of 50. ABC News has identified the train's engineer as Brandon Bastian. Don't expect to hear from him anytime soon. He's obtained a lawyer tonight and is refusing to even speak with investigators. I'm Leon Harris in Philadelphia tonight, and as you can see behind me, there is no shortage of activity here at the crash site. Investigators well into what is going to be a long night of digging, literally, for answers here. Now, we've got live team coverage for you tonight of the investigation that's happening now as we learn more about the lives that were lost. Brad Bell is live with me here in Philadelphia. On that, Brad?
Well, Leon, you're down at one end of the train. I'm up the block at the other end of the train. Very active scene here tonight. And what I want to show you is right over here at the center of all of those lights. That is the locomotive from the ill-fated train 188. And tonight, that is the focal point of the investigation. Specifically, what was going on inside the engineer's cab just before the crash. The stunning news comes less than 24 hours after 7 people are killed, more than 100 hurt in the crash of Amtrak train 188. The sleek 7-car train sent flying off a tight corner in North Philly was screaming along at more than twice the safe speed limit. The engineer reacting too late to avoid disaster.
Maximum authorized speed through this curve was 50 miles per hour. When the engineer-induced brake application was applied, the train was traveling at approximately 106 miles per hour.
The locomotive and all 7 cars derailed, 238 passengers and 5 crews sent flying. Jeff Cutler is in the 2nd car.
It seemed to go around that curve fast and too fast for the car to stay on the track, and it went flying.
Through the night, crews looked for survivors and casualties. By mid-morning, the investigation is well underway. The train's black box analyzed. Suspicions of speeding confirmed. The engineer, identified by ABC News as 32-year-old Brandon Bastian, has a lawyer and hasn't spoken to investigators. Philadelphia's mayor saying tonight there's no excuse for the train's speed.
Got to be a partial explanation to the derailment.
Well, back live now once again. You're looking at the locomotive from the train, the focal point of the investigation, and all evening we've been seeing NTSB investigators moving in and out of that big locomotive. Now, they say they want to interview the engineer from this train. They say they know it may take a few days, but we can also tell you this. The engineer was brought into a Philadelphia police precinct today. It's been reported that he left without giving an interview and in the company of a lawyer. Philadelphia, Brad Bell, ABC 7 News. Leon, back to you.
All right, got it, Brad. Now, earlier this evening, we bumped into a local congressman who was here for a personal tour of the crash site, and he told us television cameras can't come close to conveying how just intense that scene is. He was shocked, but he was also very concerned because he says now he's convinced from what he saw and heard that the whole thing could have been prevented.
Top NTSB official on the tour said to us, had the PTC system been in place, this would not have happened. Now, that's pretty definitive, that this was actually preventable, but it didn't happen because enough resources weren't being spent on it.
Now, that PTC system that Congressman Boyle mentioned is something that's designed to prevent high-speed train derailments, and in fact, that system is in place in many of the spots along the Eastern Corridor, but not here in Philadelphia. And that, of course, has raised a lot of questions. But we've dug into the history of accidents with Amtrak, and we found out quite a bit here. Now, since 2006, federal safety records show 37 accidents happening on just this stretch of rail here in Philadelphia. That includes 15 derailments, but no deaths or injuries during that period. Still, this bend, where all of this happened, has been on the radar for change for decades. Now, get this. As far back as 1901, over 100 years, officials have been talking about making plans to eliminate that curve. Well, tonight, those questions and those concerns still remain, but now we're moving on to learning more about the people who died here in Philadelphia, and more stories are emerging about the 7 lives that were lost here. 3 of them we know more about this evening. 1 was a banker, 1 was a journalist, 1 a Navy midshipman. Our Jay Cork now is live with how those lives are being remembered. Jay?
Well, Leon, most people who had a loved one aboard Amtrak 188, well, they know the fate of that person. But for one Maryland family, they're going through an agonizing ordeal. They don't know where Bob Gildersleeve Jr. is.
Along this quiet street in Elk Ridge, Maryland, there is uncertainty.
I mean, that brings it home. I'm very surprised. I'm very sort of worried.
Residents have no idea the fate of neighbor Bob Gildersleeve Jr., a 45-year-old executive with Ecolab. Family members, now in Philadelphia, say Gildersleeve was aboard the Amtrak train that derailed and that he is unaccounted for.
He hasn't been identified yet in the crash. There's supposed to be 200 people injured in hospital, 7 dead. I don't know how many missing.
Gildersleeve's 13-year-old son, Mark, is among those asking for help.
It's very scary. He has no idea where he is, what hospital he's at, if he's at a hospital, so we're just trying to get as much information as we can.
In this Rockville neighborhood, there is only grief. Neighbors tell us 55-year-old Abid Galani, an avid sports enthusiast and beloved neighbor, lived in this home when he worked for Bethesda-based Marriott. Wells Fargo, his present employer, confirmed Galani's death, calling his loss a tragedy. We've also learned that Justin Zemser, a 20-year-old midshipman at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, was among those who did not survive. His mother, Susan.
This tragedy has struck us all in the worst way, and we wish to spend this time grieving with our close family and friends.
Now back live here at Union Station, we did talk with Amtrak officials tonight. They said there is limited service here between Washington and Philadelphia for Thursday, but for Thursday, still no service between Philadelphia and New York City. Live in the district, Jay Korf, ABC 7 News.
All right, thank you, Jay. Let's talk about that service that's being planned now for this Northeast Corridor. It is not just the busiest line in the U.S. It is the busiest line in all of North America. This investigation is having a big impact on travel, as you might imagine, for millions of people. Now, tomorrow, Amtrak says it's going to be operating between Washington and Philadelphia, but with a lower frequency of trains that will be making that trip. And, of course, there will be no service at all between New York and Philadelphia. Also, helping to fill the breach here, Greyhound has begun to honor Amtrak tickets, and commercial airlines are also doing what they can to help pick up the slack. So there's a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of information that still needs to be delivered and dug up, and that's exactly what we're here for, folks. So we'll keep you posted here with everything we learn here in Philadelphia. Stay with ABC7 and WJLA.com as we continue to follow this tragic situation. We will bring you live team coverage as the investigation moves forward.